Egypt is one of the most fascinating and historical places in the world. From the pyramids, the Nile River, to world-renowned diving spots in the Red Sea. There is a reason why 15.8 million tourists visited the country last year. While it's often painted with stereotypes, and for sure it's not for everyone, as an American who lives in a country for over 3.5 years, I'm going to explain why I love Egypt so freaking much, but also why I have no plans to ever live there again. Shalom, it's No Limit Eddie, an American who moved to Africa at just 21 years old. I documented my entire 4-year journey here on this YouTube channel to make your move to Africa even easier. If that sounds interesting to you, drop a like on today's video. Starting off at the bottom of my list, we have number 5, which is the weather. Chances are, when you think about Egypt, you're thinking of the Sphinx, the pyramids, sand, desert, right? Hot environment. That's all I thought of when I used to picture Egypt in my mind. So I was quite surprised to get to Egypt and realize it gets cold in that country. Even the time when I was in Egypt, it actually snowed in the country, okay? Not in my particular city. It was a city that was more up north. However, in the city that I was in, like chunks of ice rain from the sky. They call it hail. They will have 20-mile-per-hour winds. That's what makes the cold season in Egypt appear deceptive, because you'll be like, oh, it's only gonna be 55, it's gonna be 60, but then you get there and that wind literally is just like ice knife stabbing you up. And that's the worst thing ever. And so I remember I used to have a motorcycle when I was in Egypt, when I lived, and I used to have to put on, a tank top, a shirt, a jacket, another jacket, and a scarf when I would go riding, because as you can imagine, if the wind is 20 miles per hour, just standing there, the wind is going through one single jacket. But when you add on to the fact that you're on a motorcycle and you're pushing against the wind, honestly, when I think back on it, I feel like it was actually cold in Egypt more months than it was like hot or warm. But again, I know like our memories are not actually real. We reconstruct them every time. So let me actually page in someone who also lived in Egypt for over 3 years and get their take.
Yo, Square.
What's up, broskino?
Hey, look, this is my question for you, right? So, when we was living in Egypt, was it cold for more months than it was hot or warm?
I most definitely think that it was a lot more colder months than it was hot. I feel like it was only hot maybe 3.5 months out of the year, and then the rest of the time was either cold and windy or just freaking windy.
Exactly. So that's what I was thinking too, because like you had a good 3.5 months when it was hot. Then you had like another month and a half, maximum month and a half, where it was like warm.
Yeah, the last time you abandoned your sister and left me to go chase whoopties out there in Uganda.
Okay, that went left. Let's just get back to the video.
Now we're moving up to something of crucial importance. Number 4, the food. Now, me personally, right? I am a picky eater. I'm vegetarian. I'm allergic to pasta, and I do not eat rice. I don't like it. Okay, that's a story for another day.
By the way, it's Eddie here. It's super loud. I'm in the airport right now, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick message. For those of you guys who are like, okay, I'm in the airport, like I said. How do you travel? How do you do the things that you're doing without ever talking about going to work, without ever talking about having to clock in or clock out for your job or have to ask for time off? Well, I created a free training. It's 10 minutes long, and it's in the description of my video. If you always wanted to know how to make money online, well, now is a really good time to learn. Click the link in my description and put your name and email in and watch the free training.
But when you have that combination, that same kind of combination, you basically bar yourself from eating 95% of Egyptian food. Because what is Egypt known for? Pigeon stuffed with rice. I don't eat meat. I don't like rice. That dish is gone. What else is it known? Shawarma. Or what else? Koshery, right? Koshery is like a dish that I believe Egyptians created. If you guys don't know what koshery is, it's 2 or 3 types of pasta that they serve on a bed of rice, right? And so the most popular foods, the most commonly served foods, the foods that are, of course, if they're most popular and most commonly served, are also going to be the cheapest. Those foods I cannot eat. You understand? And so I barred myself from the most tasty foods in Egypt as well as the most affordable. However, one thing you can never hear me complain about is affordability. Egypt is by far the most affordable country in the world. I have not been to a place more affordable. In Egypt, I was typically either cooking for myself, which I don't really like to cook because I feel like it takes a lot of time up. And then if I wasn't cooking for myself, I was just ordering out, food. But the thing is, I lived in quite a small city, so there was only a certain number of restaurants that I would eat at, and only a certain amount of food that I would eat from those restaurants. And so the food scene started to become very stale, very, very mundane. And even the foods in Cairo and things like that, like they're nice, but I've never heard somebody say, you gotta go to Egypt to eat this, you gotta go to Egypt to eat that. Like, Egypt is not a food destination. I would actually start looking forward to like leaving Ghost and Rose to try that local food, or to try, different kinds of foods outside the country. And so again, when I started to feel like this, I'm like, okay, well, I'm starting to like want to be out of Egypt more than I want to be in Egypt. And so another thing that I noticed that I'll mention here too, because I never mentioned it in any of my other videos, but like the fruits and vegetables in Egypt were like sometimes hit or miss. So sometimes certain fruits and vegetables were like super tiny, like abnormally tiny. Like I know in the States we have like, the GMOs and the steroids and things like that make things overly inflated in size. I don't want those. But the things here were like so tiny that it was like, why is it so tiny? And my theory is that, Egypt is like a very old country. It's a very old civilization. They've been planting the gardens and things like that for so many years that maybe like the soil has lost some of its strength because it's been like used and used and used and used. So it doesn't yield as big or as bountiful as crops as other places. And so that's my theory. Okay, you guys let me know what you think. Now, of course, the food is something that's super important just to life in general. But this point right here makes point number 4 seem like child's play. This point is number 3, the lack of community. Contrary to popular belief, while I was living in Egypt, I actually was not in Cairo, okay? Like, yes, I did spend some good time in Cairo. I go down there every few months or, every once in a while just to hang out. But the city that I actually lived in, had my apartment in, was in a much smaller city. It's still popular, but smaller. And so there's not a very big or thriving expat community in that city. Now, we did have a group of Americans that I knew. When I was started off in Tanzania, right, I met a lot of people, a lot of cool people there. And a group of us pretty much transitioned over to Egypt because we all ran into the same like visa issues and discrimination and things like that, which kind of all prompted us to look for different countries. And we all kind of ended up going to Egypt together. 1 week or so time, and that was my initial community. So you guys saw those guys in my videos, right? You had people like Sade Moray, you had people like Turnaround Blessings, you had the So Untypical family, right? So we had like, and those are the people that you had like a nice community of people there. And it came to a point though where that group pretty much disseminated out of Egypt and mostly back over to the States. Now, each of the 5 reasons that I'm sharing in this video are what led up to me making a decision on my own free will to leave the country of Egypt. Yet, there are many Americans who come to Africa and are forced to leave, primarily due to running out of money. I've been around the block, I've seen it. Now, if you want to know what it is that I do to earn a living and have the chance to hop on a call with me to discuss us potentially working together, click the very first link in this video's description now, because you'll be able to watch a 10-minute training video I put together for you, plus have the chance to apply to speak with me. Again, that's the first link in this video's description. Once that happened, maybe the last year or so, it was really just like me and my sister, right? Like those were like we were the only two people kind of left in the country of Egypt. And at that point, it got a bit lonely. And so we had a really solid community, but again, it became to the point where it started to just trickle down to the point where pretty much everybody was going back to the States. Now, this point is actually very similar to point 3, but it takes it a layer, okay? Reason number 2 is the women. So I moved to Egypt like 4 days after my 22nd birthday, and I stayed there all the way till I was past 25. And the whole time that I was there, I was single. And then for the young men watching this, right, like that's not really a bad thing. It was great because it allowed me to have a life that did not revolve around women. Okay, I could kind of like decentralize focus of my life, and even still to this day, when I am dating, they're still not the focus of my life, right? So it kind of gave me a lot of discipline, which is required in my belief to succeed. But I'm not a monk, and I do like whoopies. And so I wasn't going to live my entire life without dating. And so when I did try to do some dating in Egypt, like I said, this is why it ties into the other point. There's not a large black community in the city that I lived in. pretty much was a non-existent black. I think the whole time I was there, I may have ran into 3 dateable women, and they weren't really even like my type, to be for real. So the choice and the selection was very, very small. And so I did try to do some, you know, dating and things like that around Cairo. And what I found was there is a much bigger, much more diverse crowd of people over in Cairo. But most of the black women that are there are housekeepers, right? They're coming from places like Kenya, places like Uganda, Nigeria, and they're moving to Egypt in order to kind of make money to home. And the job that the women typically get are house help. So they're cooking things like that for the more affluent Egyptians. And their work schedule is pretty poor. Like they're working a whole month straight and they get 4 days off, right? And so that's not really an ideal setup for a relationship, right? Especially for someone like me. Like every day, I control my own schedule. I wake up when I want to wake up, I sleep when I want to sleep. So like sometimes I get bored and I want to do something. And if I get bored and want to do something, I'd rather do it with person I'm dating versus, right? So my schedule was so free where their schedule was so tightly packed or fixed. So I didn't really find too much success with that. And then on top of that, right, you have a lot of women that are there that are not doing the housekeeping. They're making more money than the housekeepers, but they're doing it through prostitution. African women as a whole pretty much have a bad name in most Middle Eastern countries, even the North African, for being prostitutions, for being involved in prostitution. I'm not gonna lie, some truth to that rumor. I ran into some even myself, right? And it was crazy. And so, yeah, that's kind of what goes on down there. I really realized that, okay, dating in Egypt is not really suitable for what I'm looking for, what I'm after. And it's one of those moments actually where you realize life is going pretty well, because then I just asked myself, okay, if not in Egypt, where? And there was no country, there was no continent that was off limits, right? I could go wherever I want, as long as I wanted, right? And like that was one of those moments when I realized, okay, I pretty much achieved my goal. Well, my goal was always freedom. And so if you also want the financial freedom to make the world your oyster, to be able to go wherever you want to go, when you want to go, for as long as you want to go there, you need to learn how to make money online. Okay, all praise to the Most High, but that's a big contributor to why I'm able to live like this. So click the very first link in this video's description and watch the training to learn how I make money. And even you have a chance to speak with me on a call to learn how me and you can work together to help you start an online business. So click the first link in this video's description and apply to speak with me. Now, getting back to the point, once I realized that, okay, like these things starting to stack up. The weather, it's cold more often than it's warm. You got the food. It's like, okay, I'm eating the same thing over and over and over. You know, again, my skin was way more clear back then, which is good, but it was getting boring. Then you had women that's not there. So it's just like all these things progressively started to add up as to why I go ahead and leave Egypt. And this is my number one, right? Which is the most important point for me as to why I left, which is the vibe was off. It just got to a point where I wanted to be outside of Egypt, not in it. Right, like I'm sitting there, I'm in my apartment, and I'm just like on my computer, I'm looking for flights, I'm watching videos of other countries. It's like I'm looking for another place to be. And why would I stay in a place where I don't feel like being there, right? And so when I started to feel like, okay, I don't really want to be in Egypt myself at this point in time for the season of my life that I'm in right now, that's when I realized I had to leave. And I had a couple of options of places that I choose, and considering back and forth, it was like South Africa, it was Uganda, and it was also Kenya. Those are the three, and I'm like, okay, I feel like one of these 3 countries I could be in, or maybe I split my time between 2 of the countries. And yeah, like I'm a very vibrational person, and so for me, it's like people ask me all the time, why haven't I gone to West Africa? I don't feel the desire to be there, right? Like I go where I feel like I want to go. I don't go to places where it's trendy just because, oh, everybody's going, so let me go to Burkina Faso. No, I go to places where I feel like I actually want to be here, add something that I want to try here, there's food that I want to eat here, there's something I want to experience. And until I get to that point with a place, I tend to just avoid, because when you start doing things not because you want to do them, but because you think other people want to see you do them, then that's when you start to lose yourself in the sauce, and the content doesn't feel as authentic. The time you have is not as enjoyable. The people you meet are not going to be as you know, genuine. So I just do things like on my own accord. And so it got to a point where kind of all those things started to stack up to the point where I felt like that pretty much are the 5 reasons why I no longer live in Egypt and why I don't have any plans at the current moment of going back. Now, don't stop here. I have over 4 years worth of content on my channel. I left Egypt to actually live here in Uganda. Check out this video where I compare the 2 to see if I made the right choice.